Amid the cold waters of Monterey Bay, sea otters drift quietly on the surface, appearing harmless and endearing. Yet few people realize that this species was once hunted to the brink of extinction along nearly the entire California coastline. Their disappearance shattered a critical link in the food chain, opening the door to silent but profound changes on the ocean floor. As a result, in just 6 years, more than 50% of the kelp forests along California's central coast collapsed. Faced with this escalating crisis, California was forced to make a seemingly paradoxical decision: to return sea otters, the natural predators that humans themselves had once pushed to near extinction, back to the ocean. So what really happened beneath the waters of Monterey Bay? And why did the return of sea otters become the key to the survival of an entire underwater forest? Terran Works reveals it all in this video. Stretching along California's central coast, Monterey Bay is far more than an ordinary bay. It is where cold northern waters collide with nutrient-rich currents rising from the deep ocean floor, creating one of the most productive marine ecosystems in the United States. Unlike the Gulf of Mexico or Chesapeake Bay, where ecological crises are largely driven by land-based pollution and river runoff, Monterey Bay did not decline because of wastewater or agricultural fertilizers. Its problem lay deeper, quieter, embedded within the very structure of its underwater ecosystem. Here, the loss of just a single link is enough to destabilize an entire system once considered among the most resilient of its kind. And that is exactly what happened in Monterey Bay. For centuries, the kelp forests beneath Monterey Bay were regarded as one of the most complete and vibrant marine ecosystems along the U.S. West Coast. These vast underwater forests are formed by the world's largest brown algae, rising from the seafloor toward the sunlit surface, reaching heights of up to 60 meters, like ancient trees growing in the middle of the ocean. Much like forests on land, kelp forests are not merely a striking landscape, but the foundation of life itself. They create a complex three-dimensional habitat where hundreds of fish species, more than 30 species of marine mammals, and countless invertebrates live, hide, and reproduce. Each forest functions as a self-contained natural community, where organisms of all sizes are woven together in a finely balanced network. Beyond that, kelp forests serve as a natural shield for the coastline, weakening waves and currents, reducing erosion, and protecting the land from the ocean's raw force. At the same time, they absorb pollutants, filter seawater, and play a crucial role in the global carbon cycle, capturing CO2 at rates that can even surpass many terrestrial forest ecosystems. However, in recent years, these kelp forests have no longer stood as firmly as they once did. Beneath waters long considered stable and full of life, a quiet yet dangerous shift began to unfold. According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, between 2014 and 2020, the area of giant kelp forests in Monterey Bay declined by an average of 51%. In many regions along Northern California's coastline, more than 95% of kelp forests vanished entirely, leaving behind bare, rocky seafloors. What makes this collapse especially alarming is not just its scale, but its speed. This was not a decline spread across generations, but a breakdown that unfolded within just a few years. An unusually rapid pace for an ecosystem once regarded as among the most resilient on Earth, and a clear warning bell for the entire marine ecosystem of the U.S. West Coast. The decline of the kelp forests did not happen by chance. Its deeper cause can be traced back to a seemingly small biological disruption, one that triggered a domino effect across the seafloor ecosystem. In 2013, along the Pacific coast of North America, a mysterious disease known as sea star wasting syndrome began to spread. Infected sea stars rapidly lost their limbs, their tissues disintegrated, and mass die-offs followed within a short period of time. According to scientists at Monterey Bay Aquarium, millions of sea stars vanished, including the sunflower sea star, a keystone species in the Monterey Bay ecosystem. Before the outbreak, sunflower sea stars acted as ecological gatekeepers, keeping sea urchin populations in check. Once this critical link disappeared, a system that had remained stable for decades began to spiral out of control. Sea urchins multiplied without restraint, setting off a cascading chain reaction in which kelp forests became the primary victims. From the loss of a single species, an ecosystem once considered remarkably resilient began to slip irreversibly out of balance. When sea stars, the keystone predators that once kept the system in balance, disappeared, the vacant role was quickly filled by sea urchins. With no natural predators left to restrain them, sea urchin populations exploded at an unprecedented rate, transforming them from ordinary herbivores into a destructive force across the seafloor. In many parts of Monterey Bay, sea urchin densities surged dramatically, in some areas exceeding 100 individuals per 10 square feet, up to 60 times higher than natural levels. Armed with powerful jaws and a feeding behavior that targets the base of kelp, sea urchins gnawed through the holdfasts anchoring kelp to the rocks, causing entire forests to collapse in a matter of time. Once lush underwater landscapes were rapidly reduced to barren urchin barrens, where young kelp could no longer take hold or recover. What is often overlooked is that the devastation caused by sea urchins was not merely the outcome of a natural disease. It was the culmination of human mistakes accumulated over centuries. From the late 19th century through the mid-20th century, large-scale commercial fishing along the U.S. West Coast severely depleted fish species that prey on sea urchins, such as rockfish and cod. At the same time, sea otters, the most effective natural predators of sea urchins, were hunted to near extinction for their valuable fur. As these two layers of natural control disappeared one after the other, Monterey Bay's ecosystem did not collapse immediately. Instead, it persisted in a state of false balance. It stood not because it was healthy, but because it had not yet been hit by a shock large enough to expose its fragility. Sea star disease became that shock, and when it struck, the consequences of past mistakes surfaced all at once. Sea urchins did not explode in number because they changed, but because humans had dismantled every barrier that once kept them in check. The ecosystem did not collapse in a single moment, but after hundreds of years of misguided intervention, finally caught up with it. When the kelp forest crisis could no longer be reversed through conventional measures, California was forced to return to a solution that humans themselves had once erased, restoring sea otters to their rightful place in nature. The return of sea otters was not symbolic. It produced immediate, measurable biological effects. In coastal ecosystems, sea otters are the most effective natural predators of sea urchins, the species that had ravaged kelp forests for years without control. With their ability to dive deep, remarkable dexterity, and rare intelligence, sea otters turned sea urchins into a primary food source. They haul their prey up from the seafloor, float on their backs at the surface, and use rocks as tools to crack open the hard shells, behavior seldom seen among marine animals. Each otter can consume up to 25% of its body weight in food every day, and where sea urchins are abundant, they focus almost entirely on this former destroyer of kelp forests. Research shows that in areas where sea otters have returned, sea urchin biomass drops sharply. As grazing pressure declines, young kelp gains the chance to anchor, grow upward, and rebuild the structure of underwater forests. This is not artificial intervention, but the restoration of nature's own self-regulating mechanism. In Monterey Bay, sea otters have therefore become more than a protected species. They are a living, biological counterforce, helping the ocean reclaim control from a crisis born of ecological imbalance that had been centuries in the making. Yet despite their effectiveness, the return of sea otters alone could not resolve the entire crisis. In areas where kelp forests had vanished completely, the seafloor was left as bare rock. True ecological deserts, where sea urchins survived in a state of starvation. In these conditions, sea otters rarely hunt sea urchins. because the energy required to capture them exceeds the nutritional value they provide. Sea otters are most effective where kelp forests still exist, where sea urchins are well fed by kelp and thus become worthwhile prey. They can protect the remaining forests, but they lack the ability to regenerate ecosystems that have been entirely erased. This limitation reveals a crucial truth. Sea otters are a necessary condition, but not a sufficient one. To steer the ecosystem back toward balance, humans were forced to intervene more deeply and more deliberately. So what did people do? The answer lies in direct action on the ocean floor itself. In many areas of Monterey Bay, divers and volunteers have had to descend directly to the seafloor to deal with sea urchins on barren, rocky substrates. The work is carried out manually, one site at a time. Sea urchins are pried from the rock surface by hand or with specialized tools, then collected and brought to the surface. Because of their sharp spines and strong grip, each operation requires careful handling and must be repeated multiple times to reduce urchin densities to acceptable levels. The effectiveness of this method lies not in speed, but in precision. In areas where urchins are removed consistently, their numbers drop sharply within just a few months, and clear signs of kelp recovery begin to emerge. While far from an ideal solution, manual sea urchin removal has become an essential first step, clearing the way for nature and sea otters to carry out the rest of the recovery process. Did you know that the role of sea otters extends beyond kelp forests? They also help control the European green crab, one of the most dangerous invasive species along coastal waters. This crab is not native to the U.S. West Coast. It is believed to have entered North America through ship ballast water from Europe and North Africa, before rapidly spreading through estuaries and coastal marshes. The European green crab is an extremely aggressive omnivore, capable of consuming dozens of small organisms each day. With its high reproductive rate, populations can explode and overwhelm native species in a short period of time. So how do sea otters keep European green crabs in check? Although sea otters primarily live offshore, they frequently forage in estuaries and brackish waters, exactly where green crabs concentrate in high densities. As sea otters return, they unintentionally become a natural biological barrier, continuously preying on green crabs and suppressing the spread of this invasive species. As a result, predation pressure on oyster beds, seagrass meadows, and many juvenile coastal organisms is significantly reduced, giving these fragile ecosystems a greater chance to maintain long-term stability. But to truly return sea otters to the ocean, it is not enough to simply release them. Lessons from the past have shown that orphaned otter pups raised by humans often lose critical survival instincts and fail to survive in the wild. Faced with this reality, conservationists were forced to take a different approach. At Monterey Bay Aquarium, a rare program known as the Surrogate Mother Initiative was created. Orphaned sea otter pups are paired with adult female otters that cannot be released due to health limitations. These surrogate mothers teach the pups every essential survival skill, from grooming to maintain body heat, to swimming, deep diving, and even using rocks as tools to crack open sea urchins and shellfish. To prevent the pups from imprinting on humans, contact is kept to an absolute minimum. Caregivers conceal their faces and maintain strict distance. As a result, post-release survival rates have exceeded 75%, far higher than in previous efforts. More importantly, this program does not merely save individual animals, it is restoring the sea otter's ecological role as a vital, living link in the Monterey Bay ecosystem. The return of sea otters is not a miracle. It is a reminder that ecosystems function sustainably only when all their roles remain intact. When a single species disappears, the consequences do not stop at statistics. They spread quietly and can bring down an entire system that once remained stable for centuries. What do you think about this issue? Should humans intervene more or allow nature to rebalance itself? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss our next journeys of discovery with Terran Works.